stuff in a place like Thales. I'm glad that you're there. I'm glad that it will enable different kinds of research projects. And I just also wanted to, can we go back to the box? Because I like pictures of the boxes that go to the archives. To also see the way in which music and performance cultures do produce these print and visual cultures, and that this is a kind of artwork too. All of the, one fancy term we use sometimes in cultural studies is the paratext. So things like the record covers, the posters, the publicity, the print ephemera that surrounds different kinds of performance cultures that allow you to track what otherwise might be difficult to track. So I'm glad that you saved all this stuff. I'm glad it can find its way.
I mean, I would say something just quickly about the record art too. You know, I did a lot of the record art for Mr. Lady, not all of it, and I did a lot of it in collaboration with Melissa York, who is a drummer. She was in that band, The Butchies, and she's a great designer. And it was really important to us to have the actual artwork be very queer, you know, like defiantly queer, which I don't know at the time. I mean, there definitely were there were precursors to that. There was, you know, your partner Gretchen's first band, you know. There two girls in the know. There were precursors to it, but there wasn't like a label that generated such an image. And I just wanted to mention that, like, it was just a really important part of it. We were talking about just sort of visibility, and which we were talking today, and we were like, lesbian visibility. Do people still talk about that? You know, it's like we do, but you know, it was a defiant part of it, I guess I should say. Like, it was really like a priority. Oops, should I move on, or should we? Do you want to go back?
Well, go back to Mr. Lady for just a sec, because I want to make sure to insert in here something that is to me really important about your career as an artist, that it has included these other job categories like producer, distributor, etc. I also love that one of the things you did with Mr. Lady was to pay homage to the 70s, that it no longer was necessary to have to diss the 70s in order to have third wave or new kinds of feminisms, that you were building bridges, for example, in that the sampler one. Yeah. And then I as a producer, one of the things that's important about some of these images here is this idea of the compilation, so that we see a bunch of different bands together on Calling All Kings and Queens. And that to me is also related to this question of the social worlds that are created in and around art, that one is not functioning just as an individual or a solo artist, that you're aware of the way in which your work is facilitated by other people, and not just other artists, but also the people behind the scenes who are designing the covers, or you know, doing the sound, or filming the thing. That is all part of the production of art. And I think your attentiveness to that, particularly because you've thought a lot about class and labor in relation to art production, and your willingness to do some of the legwork to showcase other artists' work, is a real hallmark of how you've set about to put your art into the world.
Yeah, we were talking about this, or we've talked about this several times, but earlier about just career narratives. And I was running this record label from my first teaching job all the way up until my first 3 years of teaching here. So, and having an art career. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just what I did. I mean, I think partly I'm just somebody that I was very interested in producing other people's work, like putting other people's work out there, like the curatorial thing, or creating a happening that was equally as interesting to me as being in my studio. I mean, definitely I got to a point, with a teaching career and art career and that where certain choices had to be made. But I haven't had a sort of classic kind of art career, I should say.
Okay. I hope people will come back to that in the Q&A,
Yeah.
because for me it's one of my big questions when I'm having a chance to talk to artists and not just see their work, is just trying to figure out, like, how did you make up your career? And it's still the case, I think, that queers and women are really having to make it up from scratch sometimes. There's not an obvious trajectory. So I think we can go to visibility and representation. And we're going to talk about the photograph. So maybe we won't say anything about random letters right now.
Yeah, we'll come back to this if we have time.
Because I want to hear you talk through these. So here's our gathering place on women's land in Michigan. This is my workspace. And so very, very near and dear to me, even with no people in it. And I want to hear you talk through slides from 3 different projects. This is from Outpost, which is a series of images of women's lands. And then we're also going to see the Lesbian Beds series, which is a bunch of empty beds without people in them. And then Postpartum Portraits. And all of these projects, in my view, constitute a very sophisticated response to the problem of documentary photography, like turning the gaze on queers in order to make them visible, but sometimes also to make them seem exotic, weird, and objects of exoticizing fixation. And the problem of positive images, like what kind of images of lesbians and queers do we want to have, and the desire sometimes to refuse representation and to do an end run around the demand for visibility of particular kinds. And as you said, are we still talking about lesbian visibility? There's perhaps also, for those of you in the audience who weren't around for the late 80s, early 90s world of lesbian chic and lesbian visibility, in a kind of post-L word era, where are we with, there may be some historical narratives to tell, but I for myself, I think in 2012, this is actually still an issue. Like, we have lots of visibility, and then we also, a lot of it is kind of pseudo-visibility to me, and the stuff I want to see is still not out there, and I rely on people like Tammy Rae to give it to me.